What's up, guys? Fabio from My Own Defender with my buddy Nick of Velix Training Group. We're going to bring you a 100-round training day on the range. Get after it.
All right, first drill of the day, I call 12 and 8. The way you guys are going to set it up is you'll have an open target down at 5 yards. You'll have a stick on the ground marking where the 5-yard line is, and then you guys will have a barrel directly in back of you at 10 yards. The way that you're going to start is toes touching the stick, right? Toes touching the stick at the 5-yard line, standing nice and relaxed. No like make ready positions like you're ready to shoot. Nothing like, you're ready to move, none of that sort of thing. So just like facing that target, nice and relaxed like this, toes touching the stick. On the signal, you guys will draw the gun, turn, run to the back of the barrel, where you guys will fire a bill drill, then do a mandatory reload. It does not need to be a slide lock reload. Do a mandatory reload, and then another bill drill on the way up to the stick, right? What you're looking for here in terms of training, once you guys score this in hit factor, like a good hit factor for this should be somewhere around 7.5, 8. A good like passing, what I would call passing hit factor would be 8, hence the name 12 and 8. 12 rounds, 8 hit factor or higher. But what you guys should be looking for here in terms of, training things is this entry, when you guys run to the back of the barrel, what the entry should be like, and how you set up into this position is going to play a big role in terms of how you get out of this position. So things to look for as you're entering, right about, I don't know, maybe 3-4 steps before you actually get into that position and get all set up. You need to be like turning, looking at that target, and starting to bring the gun up to get quote unquote like pre-aimed at that target. This way, as soon as you get into that position, you could start shooting the gun. Like, you don't want any sort of hesitation or anything like that when you get into this position. You want to get into this position and start shooting sooner rather than later. The way that you guys set up into this position, in my opinion, is kind of important, because if you set up in this position where you're like kind of like on 1 foot, or you have some sort of weird stance, that's going to be really hard to get out of. So what I would recommend is paying close attention to standing in such a way that is like advantageous to leave. So standing with your feet spread wide apart, knees bent as you get into this position. This way, when you leave out of that position, it's going to be significantly easier. The next thing that I would pay really close attention to is the reload. Since you do have to do a reload coming out of this position, there's a couple ways that you guys can do it. You can try to like grab your fresh magazine like on the move out of that position, or as soon as you press the trigger on shot number 6, you can grab your magazine. That's typically what I like to do, because if I grab the magazine before I start moving, like hips aren't moving around as I'm trying to index the mag, it makes it significantly easier for me to stick a reload on the way out of that position. Next thing that you guys are going to look at, you'll shoot a bill drill on the move. So walking in such a way that you're not disturbing the sights. I know a lot of people say like, hey, just walk. That's not really the case, because like if you asked me to walk to the refrigerator, it would just be like this, right? If I just walk like this, like the gun is going to bounce all over the place. So one thing that you guys can do to dry fire this beforehand, just to see like, hey, how do I need to move my feet in order to not disturb the sights as much? Like, bring the gun up and try not to disturb the sights, right? Put the dot on the target and walk to not disturb the sights. How you need to do that, that's something that you guys will have to explore throughout your range day. But I would highly recommend dry firing this a good bit of times before you guys go ahead and do the live fire thing. This way you guys can see, what it's supposed to feel like and look like, and then go ahead and shoot it.
Hey, what's going on? The next drill we're going to do is the fast drill, or the fast coin challenge, and it is on one target. You're going to shoot 2 to the credit card in the head box, and 4 to the body. You're going to do a mandatory reload between the 2. So you're going to do 2 to the head, reload 4 to the body. Traditionally, the head box is a 3x5 like index card instead of the smaller USPSA credit card in the head box. So if you want to, do that, you can paste one up there as well. Essentially, the drill works on a refined, target, like higher confirmation level on the head box, and then a more loose confirmation on the body where you can maybe get after a little bit more. So some people might call it like a throttle control kind of thing. You're trying to figure out like how much can I get away with on the head box versus how much can I get away with on the body. It does involve a draw, it does involve a reload. So it's a whole lot of things that you're working on in one simple drill with 6 rounds. And the consistency of it is the goal. Normally, traditionally, this thing is run from concealment. When I got my fast coin, I ran it from appendix and worked a lot on making sure that I can consistently do this thing under 5 seconds, which is the gold standard there. And you have to be able to do it twice in order to actually get your coin. So when you go practice this, work on the consistency of it instead of just the raw speed of it. Obviously, from outside of the waistband with this kind of gear, you might be able to do this under 4 or maybe 3.5 or something like that. But again, work on the consistency of it, work on what you're seeing on the head versus what you're seeing on the body, and what kind of trigger control you can get away with both of those things. Let's try it.
All right, next drill for you guys, the way you guys are gonna set it up is you'll have a piece of steel. So for this instance, we've got a little tiny mini popper there, and then you have an open target down there right next to the mini popper. Those will be at 10 yards from the front 2 cones. These cones are gonna be spread 4 yards apart, and then you'll have a back cone. So it's essentially making a triangle like this. Again, 4 yards apart from the front 2 cones. Put a stick or some sort of place to mark the center of the triangle. That's going to be your start position. On the beep, you're going to run backwards to the back cone, fire 1 on the steel, 2 on the open target, run up to the next cone, 1 on the steel, 1 on the open target. Same thing from the last spot, 1 on the steel, 1 on the open target. Couple things that you can kind of look at and pay close attention to on this one is, since you're coming in on that steel, you kind of need to pay close attention to how you're coming into that position. In other words, if you kind of like crash into this position and then get the gun up, you guys are going to be waiting on your sights to settle good enough to be able to shoot that piece of steel. So paying close attention to coming in with your feet nice and quiet so you could shoot that steel sooner. And then your exit, what you guys need to be paying close attention to is, since that's an open target, a lot of people, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people should be able to get away with, leaving on that open target. So leaving a little bit sooner. So what I try to look at here is, as soon as I come off of that steel and I look at the open target, I try to leave while I'm shooting that open target. How you leave totally depends on, your style, what you're comfortable with, etc. You can leave like this and cross your feet out of that position. I'd be totally fine with that. You can also just pick that foot up and step in the direction. Either way, totally fine by me. I'd recommend doing both to not only get comfortable with doing both of those different exits, but see which one you like the most, see which one makes sense for this type of drill. All right, let's get after it. All right, there you have it. There's your 100 round range day. Any of the drills that you guys saw us do today, you guys can totally change up. You can change the distance. You can throw partials on the target to make it harder, etc. You're not necessarily tied to the exact same type of setups that we have here. Like the one with the 3 cones, you could throw a reload in between. Just take these drills and say you want to work on a specific skill, use that drill to work on a specific skill. If it's reloads on the move, again, do a reload on the move in between those 2 cones. If it's the fast drill and you're completely crushing, at 7 yards like you would typically shoot it at, maybe go back to 10, maybe go back to 15, 20, 25. Challenge yourself. Don't just, do everything absolutely perfectly the entire time. I would say the other thing to, be aware of is, your live fire practice should tell you what you need to do in dry fire.
Yep.
Right? So, whatever type of trends you're seeing and that to me is like one of the biggest things that people miss. You know, they go out in live fire, they miss the trends because they're not paying close enough attention. They're just shooting bullets, right?
Yep.
Actual training involves you know, picking up on trends, picking up on things like normal, like your behaviors that you normally do when you're shooting. And then that's when, you know, that stuff basically informs your dry fire in terms of how to, you know, get that stuff out of your quote unquote behaviors and make the shooting stuff better when you do start live firing.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that we did in those 3 drills today that you can do in dry fire, and pay attention. Like, man, when I come into a position from cone to cone or something, how does my gun arrive on the spot I'm looking at? Do I stabilize the gun enough on a small enough target, like on the steel, like a popper? Have something small that you're looking at, and does the gun stabilize enough? Does it pause enough that you could actually break a shot? Or are you swinging past targets all the time? That kind of stuff gets sorted out in dry fire. The draw, the reload from the fast, you know, drill, that gets sorted out. The drawing to backwards movement without flagging everybody that's at the range, that's something that you can work out at home and like watch video of yourself. It's like, hey man, I'm like pointing the gun up range. That would never fly at a match or, you know, any kind of like range environment kind of thing. And then lastly, we didn't talk procedurally about like how many rounds to each exercise. I mean, be smart. The first one I think is 12, the second one is 6, the third one is 9.
Yep.
You know, do like probably 3 or 4 repetitions of each, about 100 rounds for your range day. But if you have a piece of steel, you're not going to be able to have exactly 100 rounds because you're going to have some whiffs and makeups or whatever. So around 100 rounds, you can get a whole lot of work done with this. And if you're building some frustration because you can't do the exercise at quite the right speed or quite the right accuracy, that's good. Yesterday we were training a whole bunch and there was frustration. Because we were trying to do things that were challenging. And so if this is challenging for you, or you're trying to keep up the same times that maybe we're putting up, that doesn't make any sense. Like, do your thing, figure out where your accuracy or speed falls apart, and then go to the dry fire room and figure it out.
Absolutely. I like it. All right, closing words. Pay attention and you won't suck.
Seriously, and dry fire.
All right, guys. Any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comment box below. As always, happy to answer any of those questions.
Get after it.